it's not just private credit, right? Asset-backed lending is big again. All of the leverage built into real estate, it's all gone up. The most perverse thing that I've focused on is private debt, right? And the way that it's landed in the Bermudas and the insurance. But I think that's where people are wrong. They're looking at private credit on the banking balance sheets instead of, well, it's an insurance. It's all in Bermuda. That's a $10 trillion balance sheet. And by the way, it's not just going to be a private credit event. It never happens like that in credit. So if we experience that, you're going to see asset-backed lending. Everything mortgages, everything commercial real estate, as well as credit card debt, because maybe there's unemployment too. And at that point in time, treasuries, corporates, everything, all credit comes down at the same time. At that point in time, we're going to have a decision, right? Do we do exactly what we did in 2008? Or, do we do nothing? Probably we don't do nothing either, but we need to, on balance, think about the pain that's been caused that hasn't been seen over the past 15 years because of quantitative easing, the inflation, which is a tax, also the wealth disparity that's been a tax, and, come to the table that's not just all the people that want to get bailed out, and instead say, well, don't they kind of deserve the pain that they're now saying is going to be the unemployment rate's always, like, I think that's a false flag when they're like, oh, but unemployment rate's going to go to 10%. It's like, okay, but like also you're going to get bailed out. So maybe I shouldn't listen to you 100% on this issue, right? In that conversation that I think may come, if we have growth in policy that we can beat that hurdle, that's one thing. We can delever through equity values going up, right? Home equity, it's really the business equity is what I focus on. And if you think about private equity versus private credit, it's the same business, right? If the equity goes up, the credit's fine. So you can delever that way on a balance sheet, if it's an American balance sheet, if it's a home balance sheet, whatever it is. The hurdle, though, I think is extremely high and undervalued. And if it doesn't happen, the scenario that I think we need to have a bigger emphasis on what actually happened in the past 20 years, which you talk about, Bitcoiners talk about all the time, for a policy decision that's like, we can experience some pain. Americans are strong. We've been through recessions. We've been through wars. We've been through everything, right? We can do a recession for 2 years. Why is it every single time that there's some panic and a repo market breaks because some hedge fund's levered and the Saudis are levered into the hedge fund, do we need to bail everything out? So the anti-bailout pitch, that's really what I would like to focus on, because I think that's adjacent to the conversation we've had.
So that's still at like the bigger societal level impact. And I certainly agree with a lot of points in there. I remember when the TARP bailout was announced in 2008, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. Now it's that's like a drop in the bucket. But why would the individual investor listening to this conversation care about that?
Because you buy a home at 3 times median wage.
Not if the societal impact changes and how does that materially change one person in society. But like if I'm an investor and I have money in the market right now and I'm 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, why do I care about the credit bubble that you're talking about right now?
Well, bailout or the bubble?
Well, it's not the bailout of the bubble. It's the potential explosion of the bubble, right?
Okay. Why do you care? Because asset prices are either going to have to be matched by a bailout on the order of 4 or 5 times bigger than 2008, or your assets are going to crash. And it may not be effective because, we've seen through financial history, things work. Japanese were able to pump it up for a long time. All of a sudden they lost efficacy. You can look at the yen, right? They used to defend the yen. Now, when they defend the yen, it doesn't work. What people think the Federal Reserve is capable of, infinite money printing, sure. But infinite jawboning, I would say no. So if they come in with a $2 trillion TARP, only half of the prior TARP or 60% of the prior TARP was actually pulled from. They always do too much in order to soothe the market. But what if the 2 trillion comes in? And again, the credit system that we're talking about is what? $200 trillion, corporates, mortgages, whatever. What if that's not enough to jawbone that? And then you see continuous deleveraging, and then it has to be 10 trillion. Continuous delivering. Then it has to be 50, whatever. Like we're talking about numbers that are so big, it's impossible to understand.
Yeah.
Then you see the hyperinflation blow up that you're talking about, absolutely worse. So if we can choose resetting and maybe coming off the steroids for 2 years or weaning off of the Xanax and whatever, drugs that are in what our financial system is now,
yeah,
then it's a better outcome.
Yeah.
And it might not be, this continuous pain. It might be acute. We might have an unemployment, and maybe we shouldn't do nothing laissez-faire, but I would lean towards do less than do more.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I mean, I'm all for Austrian economics if we could get back to that over some period of time. But let me just try to say, so what you're talking about, when you talk about the bubble and the private credit and the dangers that are there, the insurance companies, and there's a lot of danger there, for why you care or why the average person should care is more about like, hey, this is a problem. You should be aware of it. Maybe you should talk to your policymakers about this, rather than personally being interested because shoot, maybe I should get my money out of those sectors, or this
I don't think
these investments could be at risk.
I don't think they should be putting their money there, but that's not why I care, right? Like people can lose money. Capitalism, free markets. We should have freer loss and freer gains. Like I think that would be a better.
We need to allow a way up and a way back down.
Right, not socialized losses.
Yeah.
You know, but I think the real problem is considering the turning of it. Okay, and getting out in front of that. Okay, you know, let's try to analyze what's happened over the past 15 years and think about if this scenario does happen, what does that mean for the society? Like society is a broad term, but you can imagine like what if there's QE, you know, what if there's think about how much it's changed since 2008, right? What if there's another 2027, 2028 decision that the government makes where all of a sudden it's like COVID. All of a sudden the government's leaning in for that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to put like the anaphylaxis in it because the average person listening to anything can't change the way that these guys underwrite or the way insurance is putting risk together.
No, but the reason why is, I mean, sure, we should all want the greater good, and I certainly do, but we're also like selfish.
We should just play, but
humans are selfish. So I guess the question I'm trying to get to is just like, so when I look at this information, I read your reports, like, is this like a fire alarm? Like, hey, I should probably call my pension fund manager and see what exposure I have. Or is it like, I should just know about this, and these are things that should guide my like policy choices moving forward?
I think people should really question who's managing their money, and the majority of time they're idiots for sure. 100%.
I would agree with you on that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think having cash is always, you know, rainy day fund. Great. You know, that's all I can say on financial matters. Yes, there's certainly asset classes that I would suggest.
But you're not predicting that if, or more likely when this blows up, it brings the whole system down.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay, if stocks are down 50%, don't sell. Like, you know, it's pushing away from panic, honestly, addressing what I see as a major issue. But I would say, you know, just consider the range of outcomes. And then if it actually happens, lean in instead of run away, right? Lean in on the discussion as well as where you're positioning your money, not in fear.